And now Wimbledon, with Neil Fraser and Ashley Cooper competing for the men's singles title.
It's 1958, one of the biggest years for tennis.
Ashley Cooper faces off against Neil Fraser at the men's Wimbledon finals.
Is less deadly than usual. But Cooper, number 1 seed and last year's runner-up, is a tough man to wear down. Fraser loses the first 2 sets 6-4, but his tremendous effort in the third produces one of the longest sets of the championship. Time and again, Cooper stays off the attack, and the score goes to 19-17 before Fraser finally wins the set. Here comes match point. So Ashley Cooper follows Lou Hode's example.
After a close match, Ashley Cooper prevailed, netting him his first and only Wimbledon title.
But that wasn't the only important tennis match played in 1958. There was also this one.
What you're looking at is the very first video game ever created. Its name? Tennis for Two. Its creator? An American physicist named William Higginbotham. Higginbotham first had the idea for the game after reading a computer manual that discussed how to make curves on CRT tubes. His rich experience with electronics in his career greatly helped with the development of the game. When Tennis for Two became available to the public at the Brookhaven National Laboratory on October 18, 1958, it was an instant success. Hundreds of people lined up to try it. This was the first video game ever created, and it came proudly from America. However, America is no longer pioneering the video game industry. Phil Spencer, the CEO of Xbox, has this to say about modern gaming in America.
That if you just build great games, everything would turn around. It's just not true. We lost the worst generation to lose in the Xbox One generation, where everybody built their digital library of games. We're not in the business of out-consoling Sony or out-consoling Nintendo. There isn't really a great solution or win for us. And I know that will upset a ton of people, but it's just the truth of the matter is that when you're third place in the console marketplace and the top 2 players are as strong as they are and have, in certain cases, very, very discrete focus on doing deals and other things that will that kind of make being Xbox hard for us as a team. That's on us, not on anybody else.
So, how exactly did we get to this point? How is Xbox, the only American video game console company, in last place? Well, to understand that, we have to go back in time and analyze the history of video games in America. This is the failed industry.
Magnavox presents Odyssey, the electronic game of the future. Odyssey easily attaches to any brand TV, black and white or color, to create a closed-circuit electronic playground. Odyssey gives you all the exciting action of hockey and 11 other challenging play and learning games for the entire family. Odyssey, a new dimension for your television, now at your Magnavox dealer. He's listed in the yellow pages.
In the 1960s, an engineer known as Ralph Baer saw the potential of the television to bring video games to families. In 1966, Baer, alongside a technician known as Bob Tremblay, who were both working for a company known as Sanders Associates, ended up creating a video game unit known as the TV Game Unit Number 1. This unit was then further improved and eventually became the first multiplayer, multi-program video game system known as the Brown Box. The company they worked for, Sanders, licensed this brown box to Magnavox, and this later released as the device known as the Magnavox Odyssey in 1972, resulting in the first true video game system ever created. However, the Magnavox Odyssey was ultimately considered a commercial failure after it failed to sell more than 200,000 units. This was mostly due to the fact that the marketing for the system was not very great. Although the Magnavox Odyssey ultimately failed, it helped to pioneer video games in America and inspired multiple other companies to chase success that could be possible with such technology. This can be seen in the next system we will look at.
You probably already know what this game is, but if you don't, this is Pong. More specifically, arcade Pong by a company called Atari. Released in 1972, it brought the tennis experience available on the Magnavox Odyssey and popularized it in arcades. This arcade cabinet was what made Atari famous originally, and Atari would continue to innovate with its next console. This is Atari Home Pong. As you could probably guess, this console shrunk Pong down into a system that could be brought home and used. Released in 1975, it did little to innovate as it simply played Pong.
You're watching the most exciting game you will ever see on your TV set. Telstar by Coleco with 3 different games. Telstar Tennis with digital scoring, variable speeds. Telstar Hockey. Each player controls a goalie plus a forward on the other side. Oops, a goal. And Telstar Singles Handball, a game you play yourself. Telstar Handball, Tennis, Hockey. All 3 at an exciting low price. For great family fun, hit your TV to a Telstar by Coleco.
This is the Coleco Telstar, a fairly simple device released in 1976. It took the simple game of Pong and reused it to create 3 different games.
Attention shoppers, the new Atari cartridge game is in.
Excuse me. Uh-oh, George again. Atari's ASC battle. It comes with 27 games, but that's just for starters. You can get 9 cartridges, 187 games. Blackjack. Oh!
I'd like an Atari.
Sorry, only our demonstrators left. Mine! No, George. Mine. The new video computer system by Atari. More games, more fun.
The Atari 2600, also known as the Atari VCS, or Video Computer System, released in 1977. The 2600 quickly became a top choice for video game consoles due to its more advanced capabilities. Players no longer had to stick to simple games of hitting balls back and forth. Now, Arcade-level games like Pac-Man, Space Invaders, and Asteroids could be enjoyed at home. This was truly one of the most innovative consoles in the early years of gaming.
Television. The intelligent home video system. Intellivision turns your TV set into a family entertainment center. Television. Intellivision. It's a lot more fun and a bigger challenge. You are there. No game plays the same way twice. More realistic. See how the players move. Listen to the sound effects. The roar of the crowd. There are Intellivision games for everyone in the family. Space games, sport, battle action, learning games, and even games of chance. Television. The finest home video game system in the world today. The only system designed to keep pace with tomorrow. Before you buy any other video game system, be sure. Play Intellivision first. And you are there. Intellivision. So intelligent, no game plays the same way twice. Play Intellivision at selected outlets of these stores. Intellivision.
The Intellivision, made by Mattel, released in 1979 to rival Atari. It was well known for its graphical superiority to the Atari 2600 and other systems available at the time. Similar to the 2600, the Intellivision could also play arcade games such as Dig Dug, Pac-Man, Donkey Kong, and Burger Time. Only this time, these games look much closer to their arcade counterparts.
This is the arcade experience. We're ColecoVision, and we bring the arcade experience home. With arcade graphics, like Donkey Kong with multiple screens, just like the arcade game. Arcade controls, joystick, fire, and jump buttons. Arcade games, like Turbo, Cosmic Avenger, Venture, with 15 screens. And Zaxxon, games that let you have the arcade experience. Now you can bring the arcade experience home. Because your vision is our vision. ColecoVision.
Coleco released another system in 1982, known as the ColecoVision. Similarly to the Intellivision, not only in name, but also in power, it was graphically superior to the Atari 2600. Not only did the ColecoVision provide a way to play popular arcade titles like Donkey Kong and Zaxxon, but it also brought more obscure titles to the home, such as Venture and Ladybug. The American gaming industry had its first sign of failure during an event known as the 1983 video game crash. As more and more similar systems entered the market, with low-quality games being made, consumers lost interest and trust in the video game market. It seemed as though video games would just be another fad, gone in the wind soon enough. However, a new player would enter and revitalize interest in gaming. Only this time, they weren't American.
Will you be the one to witness the birth of the incredible Nintendo Entertainment System? The one to play with Rob, the extraordinary video robot, batteries not included. He helps you tackle even the toughest challenge. Will you be the first to raise the incredibly accurate Zapper and play games like Duck Hunt or action-packed Hogan's Alley and high-flying Kung Fu, each sold separately? Will you be the one to experience the Nintendo Entertainment System? Comes with Rob, Zapper, Control Deck, 2 controllers, Gyromite, and Duck Hunt.
In 1985, a new serious competitor entered the market, Nintendo. While essentially all of the previous systems were American, Nintendo was a Japanese company that released the Nintendo Entertainment System, also known as the NES. This system made video games popular again with hits like Super Mario Bros., Ninja Gaiden, and Mike Tyson's Punch-Out! It truly felt like a futuristic piece of technology with its detailed visual quality. Ironically, a Japanese device was what revitalized excitement in an industry basically invented by America.
Sega challenges you with the ultimate video game, the Sega Master System.
Hang on!
With more accurate control, more detailed graphics, more levels of play.
Awesome!
The Sega Master System comes with power-based 2 control pads, light phaser, and 2 great video games, Hang On and Safari Hunt.
Gotcha!
And with other games like Rambo, Outrun, and Choplifter, the excitement never stops. The Sega Master System. The challenge will always be there.
Just 1 year after the release of the NES, another Japanese company known as Sega introduced its first system, the Sega Master System. The Master System was an even more powerful system than the NES and featured incredible 8-bit visuals. The Master System is iconic for introducing the world to Sonic the Hedgehog, who would become a rival to Nintendo's own Mario.
In 1986, we also introduced the next generation of video game systems, the new 7800, and it was an immediate smash hit. Early in 87, new super game titles like one-on-one basketball, Winter Games, and Sky Fox will be released to take advantage of the 7800's great graphics, lifelike animation, and superb sound effects. Plus, there will be other hot new titles from such top software companies as Activision, Electronic Arts, Rotorbund, and Epix. And at under $100, the 7800 is one of the best home entertainment values in the world. That's why we're telling millions of consumers that Atari has reinvented the video game.
In 1986, the same year as the release of the Sega Master System, Atari would come back to the video game industry with their new console, the Atari 7800. Atari made sure to pack this console with value in order to compete with Sega and Nintendo. While this console was not as powerful as its Japanese contemporaries, it could play Atari 2600 games alongside other arcade classics like Galaga and Dig Dug.
Introducing TurboGrafx 16, the next generation video game system. It's 4 times faster, so the games are more exciting. There are almost 10 times as many colors, so the arcade quality graphics are even more intense. And you can expand your system with a CD player for CD games with sound effects that are turbocharged. TurboGrafx 16 from NEC, the higher energy video game system.
The TurboGrafx 16 released in 1989 in America, inspired by its Japanese version known as the PC Engine. The 16 in the name TurboGrafx 16
referred to the console's capability to render and display 16-bit graphics, which were far superior to the Master System's and NES's 8-bit graphics. Although the TurboGrafx 16 did not find incredible success in America, it would gain a small and passionate fan base of players who loved shoot-'em-ups.
And so it was, late in the 20th century, that a pox fell upon the land, a plague of home videos that were limited in intelligence. There was brain drain, and terminal boredom swept the countryside. The maker looked down and was not pleased by what he saw, and said, "This is not good." And so it was, he brought forth Genesis, a system with twice the power, twice the intelligence, twice the challenge, twice the fun. Only a chosen few were called forth to experience this new dimension of high-definition graphics and stereo sound. And the maker saw what he had done and said, "Now that's not bad. Discover Genesis, and your world will never be the same."
Sega released its Sega Genesis in 1989, the same year as the TurboGrafx 16. It similarly provided 16-bit graphics to players. The Genesis was the system that really put Sega in the spotlight in America. It was an incredibly successful console that hosted games like Sonic and Castlevania. Interestingly, it would be upgradable with attachments that would be released in later years in order to maintain the longevity of the device.
They said it wasn't humanly possible. All the power and excitement of Nintendo right in the palm of your hand. Introducing Game Boy. It's portable, it's in stereo, and its games are interchangeable. Game Boy comes complete with batteries and the outrageous new game Tetris. And for head-to-head competition, use Video Link and blow your opponent away. Game Boy, only from Nintendo. Now you're playing with power, portable power.
It seems as though 1989 was an incredible year for gaming, as Nintendo also came out with a new and incredibly innovative release, the Nintendo Game Boy. The Game Boy was unique as it was a portable device. It was an instant success due to this portable nature and also because of the games that it offered. Tetris, one of the most popular games of all time, was included with the purchase of the system. The Game Boy would also add more legendary properties to Nintendo's catalog, including Pokemon.
Hey, Mr. Block, can I go to the bathroom?
2 minutes.
Oh, yes! Good man. Oh, yes, yes! I'm in the tube! Oh, yes, yes! Oh! All right!
Introducing Lynx from Atari, the color video game you can get away with. Well, sometimes.
Surprisingly, 1989 had one more interesting release up its sleeve, the Atari Lynx. The Atari Lynx was very obviously meant to be a competitor to the Nintendo Game Boy, because of its portable nature. What made it special was its color screen. Meanwhile, the Game Boy was limited to displaying games in green or gray tones. However, even with the advanced color screen that the Lynx had, it could not outsell the Game Boy.
Introducing the next generation from Nintendo, New Super Mario World, created especially for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. It's a bit more exciting, a bit more challenging, a bit more graphic, a bit more colorful, a bit more realistic, a bit more levels, a bit more secret, a bit more enemies, a bit more friends, a bit more sound, a bit hotter, a bit cooler, a bit weird, a bit more revolutionary, a bit more Mario, a bit more of what you want. It's 16-bit, and it's yours only if you get New Super Nintendo. Now you're playing with power, superpower.
Nintendo was on a roll. To start off the 1990s, Nintendo released the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, also known as the SNES, in 1991. This console provided players with beautiful 16-bit graphics. It was essentially the successor console to the NES. The SNES sold incredibly well with its legendary library of games that included Super Mario World, Donkey Kong Country, F-Zero, Star Fox, and even Doom.
That wasn't too bad, kid.
Pretend it's a game.
In 1992, Sega released its Sega CD. The Sega CD was not actually a standalone console, but an attachment to the earlier Sega Genesis. The Sega CD revolutionized the use of CDs in the video game industry. With these CDs, games could hold more data and even display video and better audio. However, a major shockwave would hit the gaming world, partly due to the game present in the Sega CD advertisement that you just saw.
On Capitol Hill, the focus was on video games, amid complaints that some of them promote the very thing that most people are trying to prevent. Video game manufacturers today issued something of a preemptive strike aimed at keeping violent and sexual images away from kids. NBC's John Cochran now.
The makers of some video games promote them as a way that guys can show how tough they are. But today, the game makers themselves blinked. Under pressure from an angry Congress and angrier parents, game makers offered a new rating system. GA for general audiences, all ages. MA13, okay for teens, but not younger kids. And MA17 for 17-year-olds and older. The timing of the peace offering was no accident. Just an hour later, the Senate began hearings on new legislation to prevent violent games from reaching kids. Senators were especially appalled by a game where a scantily clad woman is tortured.
It is a sick, disgusting video game, in my judgment. It's an effort to trap and kill women. Shame on people that produce that trash. It's child abuse, in my judgment.
The maker of the game says players can protect the victimized woman by winning the game.
Your job as the player is to identify the villains and to trap them.
Game makers admit ratings won't work unless stores and arcades enforce the new rules.
We can sit here all day and talk about morals, but the reality of the business world out there, and unfortunately in many cases, is driven by economics.
Some makers say playing games with simulated violence may actually help some teenagers who can release pent-up feelings, a theory other witnesses disputed.
How would you like to have a teenage daughter go out on a date with someone who's just watched or played 3 hours of that game?
Not much, said the senators who vowed to press ahead with tough legislation unless the $6 billion a year video game industry cleans up its act soon. John Cochran, NBC News, Washington.
Parents were concerned about the games their children were playing. Games such as Mortal Kombat and Night Trap were more mature, but there was no warning to tell parents such information. Before the Senate hearings in 1983 about video game age ratings, this is what a game's box art would look like. However, after these hearings, the Entertainment Software Rating Board was developed in America, also known as the ESRB, and it clearly stated the appropriate age for any game.
Some of you believe your system is the most advanced in the universe. Let's review the numbers. Sega Genesis is 16 bits. 3DO is 32 bits. The Atari Jaguar is 64 bits. Which is more advanced? Clifford! 16 and 32 are less than 64. Still with 64 bits, 3D graphics, real-world animation, and lightning speed that you can only get with Jaguar. Which is more advanced? Clifford!
Can you repeat the question?
Jaguar! Jaguar! Jaguar!
In 1993, Atari released their final main system, the Atari Jaguar. With this final console, they were able to display a groundbreaking 64 bits. It seems as though Atari went out with a bang because the Jaguar was truly groundbreaking in its technology. With the release of the Atari Jaguar, the video game industry would not see the release of a major American console for years to come. However, this next American console could very well be the most important one ever.
Hello, citizens of Europe. As spokesperson for SAPS, the Society Against PlayStation, I'd like to talk to you about a menace threatening humanity. It's happening right here, in our very homes, and corrupting the lives of our loved ones. Yes, friends, I'm talking about this. It may look like a harmless bagel toaster, but inside is a deadly donut. How do you know PlayStation is not a normal game system? It carries these telltale signs. Scientists say its effects are mind-boggling. Users lose all sense of reality and enter another world. Here we have a normal, healthy young man. And here we have a fellow who's been experimenting with PlayStation for only a few minutes. Proof that we saps must be on our guard. Remember, do not underestimate the power of PlayStation.
1995 saw the entry of a new competitor, Sony. At this point, the video game industry was led by only Japanese companies, and Sony was one of them. Sony's PlayStation 1 took the world by storm with its mature advertisement and lineup of games. Most importantly, it was one of the first consoles to run games in full 3D. Gaming had unlocked a new dimension, and the PlayStation 1 implemented that dimension excellently with renowned games like Metal Gear Solid, Tekken, Resident Evil, and Final Fantasy VII.
Yo, listen up. We will not live
live in a two-dimensional world.
We won't go in one direction or dig where we can zag. We will walk through walls. We will take a look around us. We will not be confined.
We believe in the path of least limits.
We won't be told how to view the world.
We will experience true freedom.
We will not compromise. We will live the game through our hands.
We will be in control of something.
We will change the system.
In 1996, just 1 year after the release of the PlayStation 1, Nintendo responded with the Nintendo 64, also called the N64. The 64 in the name referred to the 64-bit capability of the console. The system also played games in full 3D and was incredibly influential due to its use of analog controls. The N64 had a legendary library of acclaimed games including Super Mario 64, The Legend of Zelda: The Ocarina of Time, Banjo-Kazooie, GoldenEye 007, Super Smash Bros., and Mario Kart 64. With the release of the N64, it was clear that a console rivalry had begun between Nintendo and Sony.
This is the day you have trained for, the day you have studied for. Utilize your superior skills, your superior intelligence.
Sit down, rodent!
Sarah, baby!
Oh, you were one fly.
Don't make me hurt you. Learn to defeat your ruthless enemy, Steve of Hackensack.
Ryan, you're gonna get roofed.
Shut up, quadruped.
Sega Dreamcast. It's thinking.
In 1999, Sega released its final system, the Sega Dreamcast. It was an incredibly powerful console that rendered a whopping 128-bit graphics. The Dreamcast was one of the first systems to show just how great graphics could be, and its visuals can still hold up today. It was revolutionary with its online functionality, allowing people to play games such as Phantasy Star Online together. After the Dreamcast, Sega would relegate to making games for other systems, including Nintendo and Sony. In 2000, Sony released the PlayStation 2. The PS2 had an incredibly advanced CPU, allowing for stunning and lifelike graphics. Not only was it a game console, but it was also a DVD player, and an affordable one at that. Because of the quality of the console and its functionality as a DVD player, the PS2 remains the most sold console in the history of the world, as of date. However, just 1 year later, Microsoft would try to disrupt the industry and get America back into console production.
We're unveiling the Xbox. This is the product that will be out later this year, and there's an amazing amount going on. Working with partners who help build the hardware, working with the software developers, working with the retailers. The program around this thing is really quite phenomenal. But the box itself is another thing that we put a lot of energy into. So you may have been wondering what this draped device was here. This is the Xbox. And so, for the first time, let me now unveil Xbox. As I said, the design here was driven by spending time with gamers. You know, actually putting the control in their hands. We tried out over 100 different form factors, you know, to find what was the most comfortable and would give them the best gameplay. But today isn't about me, Rock. It's about the future of video games.
Bill Gates, you never cease to amaze the Rock. Never cease to amaze the Rock. You're right again. Today isn't about you. It's about the new Xbox. And quite frankly, I couldn't be more excited. The Xbox is everything the Rock is. Cutting edge, powerful, exhilarating, and like the Rock, it will be the most electrifying thing coming out this year. And what the Rock is to sports entertainment, to the WWF, the Xbox will be to the video game industry a breakthrough and certainly an original. I mean, the Rock doesn't impress easily, Bill, you know that, but I'm pretty damn impressed with what we're seeing here today. And considering that this Xbox at this moment is only running on 1/5 of the system's power, it's very impressive.
This was it. In 2001, America seemed to be back as a major force in the games industry with the release of Microsoft's Xbox. Thanks to Microsoft's background in PC development, the Xbox was stocked with the most powerful specs at the time. The Xbox very famously popularized online gaming with the immensely successful shooter Halo Combat Evolved. It was clear that Xbox was a new competitor in the gaming industry, starting a competition for sales that would be known as the console wars between Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft. But just how have each of these companies performed over the years? Let's take a look. These are the sales for the 6th generation of consoles. Obviously, the PS2 blew all the other consoles out of the water, but proudly in second stood the Xbox, the new console on the block. This was surprising considering staples like Nintendo and Sega released their GameCube and Dreamcast respectively. It seemed like the next generation of consoles could only bring more success for Xbox as people became more familiar with the brand. These are the sales for the 7th generation of consoles. The Nintendo Wii took a strong lead in this generation due to its more accessible and family-friendly experience. However, the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 were very close in sales. Although Xbox sold more in America, it lost the global sales competition and ended up in a very commendable and respectable 3rd place. These are the sales for the 8th generation of consoles in 2019. The PlayStation 4 completely defeated the Xbox One. For context, by the time this data was collected, both consoles had been out for 6 years. The Switch was in 3rd at the time, but only 2 years into its life cycle after the disastrous Wii U launch. So why did the Xbox One fail so badly? It has to do with the console's reveal. The console was not advertised properly as a real console and more as an entertainment hub, confusing consumers. Additionally, Xbox made a questionable decision to try and require the Xbox One to be always online, and also prohibit the sharing of physical game copies. This did not go over well with fans. The pricing was the final nail in the coffin. When PlayStation announced the PlayStation 4, they made sure to show that it was better in every way than the Xbox One. Let's take a look at both reveals of the consoles.
So, It's time for technology to step behind the curtain and for you and your entertainment to take center stage. Today, we're thrilled to unveil the ultimate all-in-one home entertainment system. The one with the power to create experiences that look and feel like nothing else. The one that makes your TV more intelligent. The one system for a new generation. Ladies and gentlemen, introducing Xbox One.
Fortunately, we have a product for people who aren't able to get some form of connectivity. It's called Xbox 360.
Right. So stick with 360. That's your message if you don't, like it?
If you have zero access to the internet, that is an offline device. I mean, seriously, when I read the blogs and thought about who's really the most impacted, there was a person who said, hey, I'm on a nuclear sub.
Right.
And I don't even know what it means to be on a nuclear sub, but I've got to imagine that it's not easy to get an internet connection.
For instance, PlayStation 4 won't impose any new restrictions on the use of PS4 gamers. When a gamer buys a PS4 disc, they have the rights to use that copy of the game. They can trade in the game at retail, sell it to another person, lend it to a friend, or keep it forever. Or for any type of authentication. If you enjoy playing single-player games offline, PS4 won't require you to check in online periodically. And it won't stop working if you haven't authenticated within 24 hours.
Excited to announce that Xbox One will launch this November in 21 markets around the world at $499 in the US and 499 euros in European markets, and 429 pounds in the UK.
I'm very proud to announce that PlayStation 4 will be available at $399. €399, and for the folks in my homeland, £349 sterling. In the US and Europe this holiday season, it's a very compelling price that offers incredible value given the amount of entertainment PS4 will provide to gamers over the next decade and beyond.
It was very evident that Xbox missed the mark when revealing the Xbox One, leading to these poor sales shown here. And these are the sales of the current generation of consoles. These numbers include the 8th generation sales, and Xbox has failed to reach over 100 million sales between two generations. It is the only company out of the three to do so. Of course, much of this has to do with Xbox losing the previous generation of consoles. As Phil Spencer said, Xbox lost an incredibly important generation where people built up their digital library of games. After that, there was no reason for people to switch over to Xbox. However, Xbox's low sales can also be attributed to their business practices. Xbox has effectively shot themselves in the foot with console sales by offering many of their console games on PC through PC Game Pass, making the need to buy an actual Xbox in order to experience their lackluster exclusive titles much less necessary. However, it is not just Xbox that is failing in the American games industry. The American games industry as a whole is failing. New American games are starting to be reviewed with a pattern of negative scores. Why is that? Well, the truth is that video games have become more expensive to produce as the technology becomes better. Many times, companies are looking to make quick returns on expensive projects by releasing half-finished games loaded with microtransactions, with a promise of fixing them later. These games then fail to sell well, and the result has been major layoffs within the last year that will most likely continue. The truth of the matter is that the American video game industry and the video game industry as a whole has failed. It is a shell of its former self. Thank you for watching.